Okay, so here, this whole Putin thing. I'm surprised how many people are talking about this Putin thing. I know you've been hearing about this Putin thing, about Ukraine. Ukraine. You know where Ukraine is? Anybody know where Ukraine is? Like if I showed you like a map, flat Earth or a globe, either or, can you find Ukraine on a flat Earth map? Can you find Ukraine on a ball map? Do you know where Ukraine is? I mean, we hear about, oh, Putin and Russia invading Ukraine. And people talking about, oh, woo, woo, woo. This is about World War III. World War III, I think a brother, Samson of Jah, is that the brothers of YouTube? One of the brethren, yeah. He had, you talk about that World War III is spiritual warfare. One way of looking at the real World War III, is looking at the spiritual warfare aspect. That's what World War III is. World War III is a spiritual war. In fact, World War III already happened. People need to be talking about World War IV. Now, we're still in this third woe. I mean, there has been wars, and wars are determined. You know that verse in the Bible where it talks about wars are determined? Wars are determined until the end. Let me show you this right here. Just a couple of words, a couple of comments on this, because it seems as though this might be a big something. This right here, is not just a minor something, right? Because of the background, the historical background. Most folks don't remember about World War, especially the young generation, right? The young generation, the younger generation don't know, and even some of us who are a little bit older, we might not really know. We heard there was a war, we seen some war movies and everything like that, but what do we really know? Okay, boom. Okay, so here, this verse here, now this is the KJV, it's a basic verse, but reading the Hebrew, or really the Aramaic, Daniel, the book of the prophet Daniel HaNabi, it's actually in Aramaic. But to bring out this sense right here, okay, here's Daniel 9:26. It says, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. But here's the part after the semicolon here. And the end, you see where end is highlighted? And the end thereof shall be with a flood. And to the end of the war, desolations are determined. Now, not to get into the Hebrew right here, but those who would like, us to just, show and prove that from the Hebrew, the better translation is that wars are determined to the end. Wars are determined. Have you noticed that since World War II, was it World War I that they were saying that World War I was the war to end all wars? But then after World War II, they haven't declared anything a war. Have you noticed that? Nothing is a war. Nothing has been declared as a war. Everything is like either a conflict or a situation or, a skirmish, something like that. But recently, I'll say over the past, maybe since the new year, sometime in the downtime from like the sabbatical studies, from the podcast, from RastafariJews, the YouTube channel, also in the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, being a member and a duly elected officer, the different and plus in our own liberty, things, finite family, and those of our you could say dependents as they will be, of my household, my small little household, but still, we have our dailies that we all have to do in this world, being in this world, not of this world. So we have like downtime. Downtime is like after we get off the podcast, we're in the podcast for about like 3 hours, we usually like to shift gears, so sometimes we'll watch some series, different series are out there. We have our favorites, not to get into, not promoting this one or that one, but some of them are very interesting. Also, what we like is documentaries, looking at some documentaries, whether on the YouTubes or on some of the other, the putlockers. Some of you know about the putlockers, the couch tuners, some of these other, sites and everything. But, but we just have to upgrade how we do. Like if you watch some of the free movies and free series sites, Gotta have some of that the pop-up blocker stuff, and then also the VPN. You know about that VPN stuff? You know, because some people say that they're going to be like trying to charge people after the fact. You know, like you've been watching some free stuff out there, so you need one of those things like VPN that kind of disguise what your ISBN is. I know I'm talking this other techo talk, but ones that are tuning in on this, we don't know what we're going to call this one right here in title or in name, but what we're saying right here is that now this is going to sound kind of strange here, you know, and I don't know if is this treasonous talk or whatever, but Putin and Russia in principle is not wrong. Putin and Russia in principle is not wrong. It's like when Bob Marley, Barhana Selassie said, you know, they always know how they can reach us. You know, they always know how they can reach us. Like in spite of seeing all these kind of like conspiracy and Illuminati and New World Order video, how been a setup from the get up. You know, you would think that when they pull this on us, like they've just pulled this on everybody. You know, people say, "Oh, Russia invaded Ukraine." I'm like, and it's coming from some knuckers, right? It's coming from ones that are using on into this sort of stuff. Like that's why I began off saying that. What do you think Ukraine is? Do you think Ukraine is like the new musical group from Europe or something like that, like UB40, Ukraine or something like that? What's the other group? U2, UB40, Ukraine. You think it's a new pop sensation out of Europe? But what do you really know about this? What do you know about world history? I'm talking about recent world history. Now I'm not going back to 10,000 BC right now. We're talking about this recent world history. And so I've been watching World at War. How many of you know World at War? World at War. It's a series that was put out, I think, an English documentary series that was put out back in the 70s. And then, again, I've been watching Oliver Stone's Untold History of the USA. Untold History of America. I think it's Untold History of the United States. I think that's the name of it, right? Yeah, Oliver Stone. It's like a 10-part something I think he did on Showtime some years ago. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I watched it already, I think like last year. And then I went on to some other, you know, documentaries, you know, different documentaries. I like to watch some documentaries about real things, although sometimes I'll watch some other series, you know, some other popular series, some of the, like the English, the BritBox kind of stuff, you know, or some of the Netflix, you know, or the Netflix series, or the Apple series, or who's that guy, the guy with Amazon? He's even doing stuff too. You know, a lot of them are sponsoring a lot of different, they're making their own movie. So there's a lot of choices out there. But in my personal downtime, I prefer to, you know, check out some documentaries. You know, watch some make-believe, some make-up stuff, some of their movies, series stuff, and then watch some real history. But, okay, here's the point. Long and short of the point. A lot of people don't recall World War I or World War II, right? And we began off talking about, like, can you find Ukraine on a map? Whether it's a globe map or a flat earth map, whether we give you a globe map or can you find Ukraine on the map? Now, finding Ukraine on the map, right? Do you know about the history of this region over the past, say, 100 years? See, this is important because history, right? They say that one that doesn't know the past or learn from the past is bound to repeat it, like if you don't learn from the past, then you're bound to repeat it and maybe pay a higher cost. So if something bad happened in the past and people didn't learn about it, and the same thing is happening today. So now it seems like some people are trying to put like Putin in this kind of they're trying to put him in this kind of box, like where he's like he's like a Hitler. I've even been hearing ones compare. I'm like, man, do people even know about what caused World War II? Since they keep Ethiopia out the equation, if they had listened right to Haile Selassie, right? Back in those days, perhaps we would not even have had World War II and Europe would never got burned down. People think that it all began because of the whole invasion of Poland or the taking of the Sudetenland, by Hitler, or appeasement by Neville Chamberlain. Now somebody's named Neville Chamberlain, the Sudetenland, the whole thing with Poland and what they call it, Lieberraum, or something like that, like living room, like where the Germans and Hitler was promising. Hitler gassed up the German people, right? And they believed him, right? You know what I mean? And everything was going good, for a certain point until it wasn't going good, right? But during that period of time, and I've seen this from a couple of different perspectives, different documentaries, different researchers, pro or against, but ones that give a little honest perspective to it, pointing out an incident that occurred. And now I'm seeing with Russia and what's going on in Ukraine, I'm saying, wow, that's so interesting that what's happening today is actually based on what happened yesterday. All right? Like Putin. Can you even name any other, what's Putin? Putin is the prime minister or something like that? I think Putin prime minister. I think they use prime minister and stuff like that. Yeah. Some people might want to clown me. You don't even know that Putin is the prime minister. No, I'm saying the leader of Russia. Can you name 3 of the last leaders of Russia over the past, say, 50 to 60 years? Past 50 to, say 50 to 100 years. Can you name 3 of the last, besides Putin, can you name 3 previous leaders or prime ministers of Russia? We're not going back to the czars. Let's not go back to the czars. Not going back to the czars. I didn't say SARS. I said czars. All right? I'm not talking about the drug czar over here in America. That used to be the title of the, of the leaders of Russia and so forth and so on. Can you? And now, if you can you name their British and their American counterpart, like the American president? What do you know about Bitter Lake? Do you know anything about Bitter Lake? Hey, here's a point for you if you want to check out, get up your information, get up your 411. Check out Adam Curtis. Adam Curtis, he's a British documentarian. I think it's on the YouTube, it's called Bitter Lake, right? Adam Curtis, Bitter Lake. He has a new one that came out. It's called Can't Get You Out of My Head. The previous one, I think, was called Hyper. What was that one called? Hyper what? No, not hypersensitivity. Hyper. What's it called? Hypersensitivity? That's interesting, that Adam Curtis. Okay, do this right here. Adam Curtis, he has some very good documentaries, right? Some very good documentaries that give you the other side of the historical interpretation. Since a lot of it we can say is based on interpretation, history, they say history is written by the victors, right? The victors, like the winners, right? It says until the lion learns to tell his story, people will keep like accepting the word of the hunter until the lion. Okay, they know how to lie. They know how they lie. Okay, oh man, I should have this over here. Hyper-normalization. That's it. I got it right here. It's called hyper-normalization. Hyper-normalization. But Adam Curtis, he got a whole series of very good documentaries. You might not agree with the perspective, but definitely gives you something to think about as we now view politics and how these things are being, shopped to us. All right. So Putin and Russia is not necessarily wrong when you know history. The simplest and easiest way to put this to folks right here, right? The easiest way to put this across the ones, it is like Russia situation is like America. You know how America has been so concerned about its borders? And you know how America, they've been talking about terrorists coming across the border with the immigrants, and if immigrants are able to come into the country so easily, maybe terrorists. Now, it's already proven, you know, that there are some curiosities that are happening. You know, it's proven that someone's have come in, like some of the Arabs or Arabic kind of, you know, Middle Eastern people, because on a certain level, some Middle Eastern people could theoretically, you know, pass for people from South America, right? So America was very concerned and has been concerned. Like, okay, Trump, when Trump was in office, yeah, people were like, oh, you're on this Trump thing, and therefore a lot of people, you know, they hate Trump. But you have to understand that even under the other presidents, they know protecting their borders. Right? So just as there was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and if you know about the Cuban Missile Crisis, just as there was the Cuban Missile Crisis, right, that had occurred, you know, back in the days and everything, and America's position was that how can you have Russian missiles right there in Cuba? Because with the with the missiles, you can hit, you know, Miami, you could hit Atlanta, you could hit DC, depends on the range of the missiles. You could hit anywhere in the continental United States of America. And that was a big thing. At that time, the world, if you have parents or older folks who lived through that, they're probably a little bit old now, but if they, you know, lived through that, ask them about what they experienced. How was that for them? See, we totally forget about these things, you know, and there's what they call brinksmanship. You ever heard of brinksmanship? You know, almost like pushing something to the very brink. It reminds me of that hip hop tune, "Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge." That's Russia. That is Russia. Russia is close to the edge. See, when America does it, when America says they want to close borders or they're not letting people come in or go out to Canada, or they're very strict on the Canadian borders because, you know, Canada borders America, or they be very strict on like Mexico, the Mexican border, right? Or they be very strict on like who be coming in, you know, like the Haitians. You remember how like they had the Haitians? Okay, that right there, what you're seeing right there, I just sent something, right? Because I want to show you what I'm talking about so you'll be able to get a visual of this, and then maybe we can get into a little more details of what we're speaking about here. All right, so here we got it right here. Okay, this is one video. It was 2016. There's a new one that's out. It's called "Can't Get You Out of My Head." It mainly focuses on Asia, the situation in Asia, like Japan and, well, more like China, but in that particular region. It's, like I said, it's very, brothers and sisters, check it out. You know, the one I would recommend, let's go over here, because one of my brethren, hail up, Lord Priest, Isaac, yes you know what I mean, the Tiger's Den, you know, coming up on his channel, his platform of reasoning and an interview. I think still he wants to, and many ones want to know, well, what happened to Rastafari sabbatical? Well, you know, we mainly focus on the Torah, you know, and discipleship studies and the linguistic, the language, you know, the gift of the Holy Spirit, you know, sharing and building on that. But then also as a way of demonstrating, right? When it's like a demonstration. Like as we study the scripture, study the Bible, but now that's the Bible, the scripture. Does any of it, person may ask, apply to real life? So then we apply those principles to real life and real situation. This is where the rubber meets the road, and that the truth is in the fence, but not a sin, right? So that's part of the reason, but we'll go into more details hopefully when we follow up on it, right? But here, these are a couple of Century of the South. I would recommend, my recommendation, you could take my recommendation or not, but my recommendation, if you haven't checked out Adam Curtis's, his videos, a lot of them are up on the YouTubes and they're available. Watch it for free, you know, maybe you can even save it, download it, boom, 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 right? So the Century of the Self is the first one I would recommend, because you really have to know the mind of the, you know, like what it says, here is, you know, he who has wisdom, let him count the number of the beast. Who can make war Who can make war with the USA? USA. That's what a lot of people are saying. And it seems like a lot of people are, caping for the West, the Gentiles, Babylon, right? And the daughter of Babylon, England and America. I'm talking about England. When I talk about Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, I'm talking about England and America. And when we're talking about England and America, we're talking about the heads of this Gentile world system. And we talk about the Gentiles, we're talking about the nation states. We're in a time that politically is known as nation states. So what I've just done there, like in a microcosm, is take some of the translated biblical terminology and show you how, if you understand the biblical terminology, right, and the true context of it, you can really see through a lot of the politics that they be playing today. So the Adam Curtis series and his videos, each one is a study. Like after you watch, I think Century of the South has 3 videos. I think there's like 3 videos. There's 3, I think it's like 3 parts. But each part, as you watch each part and go through it, you're gonna be like, whoa, oh my. And then I would recommend you go over it again, take part by part, take a pen and a paper. First, just watch it, just get familiar with it. Like first watch it and then go over it and try to study it. You go little by little study, but get the whole overview, right? Century of the Self is one of the ones I would recommend that first. And then the next one I would recommend is The Power of Nightmares. If you want to know about this so-called Middle Eastern, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Islamo-fascist so-called, blah, 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 terrorists, then you need to check out Power of Nightmares. The Power of Nightmares, right? Now, some of the other ones I would recommend too, but like I say, he's been doing this since like the 90s and stuff like that, right? And I think he's really getting better with it because he has a particular thesis, a point of view, right? Like you say, a worldview, a point of view that he studied out and has exhibits. And then as you get acquainted with that, like when I first watched it, I even laughed a few times by, some of the ways he characterized it. But then as I started to see what's going on in the world, in the politics and stuff, I'm like, that's like Century of the South. In fact, in Century of the South, it's about Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays, he is a relative of what's that guy? Sigmund Freud. And he shows how they use psychological techniques, right, to make, like, for example, back in the 20s and 30s. You remember back in the days they used to have the Virginia Slims commercial. Remember the cigarette commercials, and the ads in the newspaper, like psyching women out into, they got women to smoke by understanding the psychological techniques. And these same psychological techniques that they use in advertisement to sell products and merchandise is the same sort of psychological techniques that they started, like as we move past the time of Kennedy and more past maybe even the time of Reagan, like that they started to then use to sell you politics. So in other words, learning about how psychology of human beings go, they've used this knowledge, right, of the good and the evil of psychology to sell you products, goods and products, even things you didn't need. If you get this sort of thing, it'll make you feel better about yourself. If you buy this, you will feel like a winner. You won't feel like a loser if you're wearing this. And they use the same technique, Edward Bernays, right, to sell like cigarettes and smoking to women like Virginia Slim. Baby, you've made it now, baby. All this kind of goofy stuff. But it really contributed to women smoking, because they made it seem like women smoking was a part of women's liberation. Because they know that women were desiring, especially women under the white patriarchy. Daughters, sisters, women out there, don't be against patriarchy, be against the white patriarchy, or any patriarchy that has gotten so hoodwinked and bamboozled that it lives in the image of the beast, of the white patriarchy, right? So a lot of women, especially the white woman and even other women, but especially the white woman, you know, the white woman, I can understand the white woman being a little bit feministic and into that, you know, feminism. If you understand how the white man, you know, being the world ruler, how he treated his woman a little bit better than the slave. Anyway, that's a whole other, and you want to know what happened with Rastafari sabbatical, right? These sort of reasonings, you know what I mean? Anyway, the Century of the Self, right? Century of the Self, first one I would recommend, right? And this one over here, Power of Nightmares. Power of Nightmares. But like I said, I would recommend Century of the Self first. Because I think it was the one, the first, was that the first one I seen? I don't know if Century of the Self was the first one I seen or Power of Nightmares. I think it was probably Power of Nightmares. And then I caught up with Century of the Self. So either way, you know, either way, any way you go about it, right? When you get to the first episode, if you haven't seen it and you're not familiar with it, I think you'll recognize why we're taking so much time here to just get one's acquainted with this particular filmmaker and kind of documentarian, you know, Adam Curtis, right? Like we said, there's some other ones right there, The Trap, The Living Dead. That's interesting, but some of these you might not find, you know, available like on YouTube's. They might be, but I think I look for a few of them. You don't find them available. Anyway, if you look up Adam Curtis right here, here we go right here. You look up Adam Curtis right here, so you can see what we did. Where is it? Well, we look up just his name, Adam Curtis. You look up Adam Curtis, Google it. Google will tell you, you know, some things that can be helpful, if not things that you need to know, right? Hypernormalization. This is the most recent one that I've seen before his latest one dropped. The latest one that dropped is Can't Get You Out of My Head, right? And here's some of the stills from Hypernormalization. Now, Hypernormalization, it came out right around the time that Trump came out, like when Trump, and it's very interesting. Let me just say that. It's very interesting. And it even connects with what happened to Gaddafi. I know a lot of people are like, you know, shocked. And some people say Gaddafi is, you know, some people have views on Gaddafi, different views, you know, for and against Gaddafi. And the way Adam Curtis brings it out, he's not promoting any political opinion. He's just breaking down the whole game, right? And so that's the one they know, we know they lie. They know, you see that right there? They know, we know they lie. And so once again, what we're now seeing with this whole Russia and Putin and Ukraine thing is a repeat. But it seems as though you don't know that we know that they lie. That a lot of people are acting like they're telling the truth about this, and they are lining up on the so-called anti-Russia side of it, like what Russia did, America doesn't do. Now they call it, now notice the West calls it an invasion, and all the news media says the same thing. And if you don't know about the NPR, the news releases that the government, you know, allegedly in the Pentagon used to give, you know, news releases, you know, whatever news, talking point, they call it talking points. They give them talking points. And if you don't know history, past history, you can't see that the same trick that they played on your mama, your papa, your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather, they're playing on you if we don't know the tricks that they played before. This is why history, even though it might be his story, right? But if you have the spirit of truth, right, you can get the true story even from his story. Just to point that out right there, right? Just to point out some basics, all right? All right, so here, where are we at the time? Okay, we're going to just seal this up right here, and we might pick up on this a little bit more. But because I keep hearing ones keep talking about this Ukraine and Russia thing, and now we hear that NATO is, what's NATO doing? Let me bring this up right here. NATO. Yeah, U.S. troops deploying for first ever NATO response force activation. Caught this on Troy Travain's site. You know, Troy Travain, was speaking a little bit about this. U.S. troops deploying for first ever NATO response force action. All right, so the first time since NATO. You know what NATO stands for? North American Treaty Organization. But guess what? It's located. Guess where it's located? It's located, right? It's located in Europe. No, so in other words, it's like this. After World War II, right? America and the American intelligentsia and their leaders and their think tank and their brainy people, you know, so forth and so on, right? Their secret cabal that rules the 1%, so to speak. They got together and said, you know what? We can protect America by placing our offensive and defensive weapons in Europe. So what they did is place like nuclear and, you know, weapons over in Europe, right on Putin and Russia's doorstep, right? Now, it would make you think that, wait, didn't Russia lose the most people? Russia, you know who really won the war, really? You know who really won the war, the World War II? It was Russia. It was Russia. Russia really, let's see, America and England might have lost, they lost less than 1 million, like, soldiers, it's like 600,000. Russia, if I'm correct with the numbers, lost something like 22 something million, you know? And while Russia was fighting to survive against Nazi Germany's attack, right? While Russia was trying to survive, America and Britain, you know, was taking their sweet ass time to get into the war. America took its sweet ass time. Yes, America did supply Britain with a lot of the weapons, and we're making weapons and munitions, and we're sailing them across the ocean and fighting against the Nazi U-boats, Ukraine, UB-40, U2, right? Well, the U-boats were sinking a lot of boats that were trying to get supplied, because if America didn't send food and resources over to England, England would have starved to death. So America was very important in helping out their mother, you know, because, you know, America is basically the daughter, you know, the daughter of Babylon, the daughter of baby London and everything, you know. So they did Britain good, you could say, like that, the Americans and even our people, because a lot of our people, black people, also worked in the factories. Black women, black men were out there, Tuskegee Airmen. We sunk German destroyers, so forth and so on, to our black men, you know, and showed ourselves honorably, the Buffalo Soldier, you know, in the wars of America, right? Even though when a lot of the troops that served honorably, the black men, came back to America, it's still Black History Month? Yeah, they came back to America. Many of them were lynched. Can you imagine that? Fighting against racist, Nazi, anti-Semitic, Hitler, right? Black men who already were going through a lot of, can I say anti-Semitism? I mean, we who are black Jews, we are Semites, but still, let's just call it racism for right now. We remember what happened to Whoopi, right? Racism. Going against all this racism here in America, decided to say, we're gonna fight for America against this racist over there. I know some of the black men were thinking that maybe then the white men will recognize we're not really the enemy, and we can prove ourselves, you know, to be as much warriors and fighters and men just like they are, and we're here defending the good old USA, 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 right? But then they came back over here. That's probably one of the saddest, not even saddest, it's almost deranging to think that black men who were fighting against Nazi Germany in World War II came back to America, came back to America, and then was lynched by some dirty racists. Can you imagine that? You know, after all that, right? See, I'm pointing out history because we got a lot of black people and black men and women in the army. You know, we got black men and women and probably black transgender, but, you know, that's how they're doing it nowadays, right? Up in the army, you know, ready to go against Russia, because America got the biggest army in the world. Who can fight against America? Who can fight against the, who can make what? Who can make who? Who can make, let's go over here. Who can make war? Let's just share a couple of the basics here, right? Who can make war, right? Who can make war, right? Who is like, boom, right there. Revelation 13:4. And they worship the dragon. You got a lot of dragons over in England, right? Don't you have a lot of dragons over in England? I'm talking about the dragon, the mythological dragon. Like in the city of London, right? I haven't been there, not yet, maybe if John will, but I see there's a lot of dragons all over the place. They have dragons everywhere. I mean, even the whales on that flag, Buckingham. Are they Hamites? They're Canaanites, aren't they? They have Ham, Buckingham, New Hampshire. Everything is Ham, 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 Ham. But anyway, is that Ham as the pig Ham, or is that Ham as Ham, the father of Canaan? But anyway, they have these dragons all over the place. Like people who have been there, you could just look it up on Google. Google City of London. Right now, pause the video, put on the Google City of London, really the inner city of London, City of London, and then put dragon. And then when you go search, click on images and just scroll down. You'll see it for yourself. Does that have anything to do with Revelation 13:4? Now, here's the interesting thing. The European or the white man or the English, the British, the Anglo-Americans, wasn't they so Christian? They were so Christian. They was going around in Africa and Asia with their missionaries and trying to civilize the so-called heathen. The heathen black and Asian people and South American people with their Bible and their Bible and their Bible and their Bible and their gun. Right? And look at it now. So when did they start with this dragon thing? Wasn't they reading the Bible? I wonder, like, if they're Christian people, why do they just have dragons on their flag and all over the place? But no matter how many dragons they have all over the place, the people see, but they don't perceive. The people are hear, but they don't understand. People see, but they don't perceive, hear, but they don't understand. What did our rabbi, the rabbi of rabbis, our black Lord and Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach said? Therefore they will stumble and fall backward and be broken and be snared and be taken. And they worship the dragon which gave power to the beast. Check. They worship the dragon who gave power to the beast. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like to the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Pause. This is all I'm hearing about this Putin. We're making Putin like it's the individual Putin. Like Putin is just the only one who's... No, it's obvious that a lot of his fellow Russians agree with the security move that they're making on the Russian border. Now, if this was the Joseph McCarthy time, they would definitely say, he's a communist. But isn't Russia now on the capitalistic tip? The Soviet Union is no more. Soviet Union, that's the thing of the past. USSR, we're not talking about the USSR. We're talking about Russia, right? So people are saying that you don't want to mess with America. I'm hearing a lot of black people. I'm talking firstly to the Jew, the black Jew, and then to the other Gentiles, whether black or white, non-partial, right? I'm hearing a lot of Negroes saying a lot of stuff like, Putin don't want, Russia don't want to have no war with America. America got the biggest army in the world. Who can make war with America? And I'm like, don't they know? Don't they know that what they're saying has already been prophesied to be said? Don't they know? Right? Yeah. Now notice what it says right here. And there was given to him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. The almighty dollar. You don't want to wrestle with the almighty dollar. That's a blasphemy there. Almighty dollar. Oh, USA. And power was given to him to continue 40 and 2 months. One of my brethren, we had a reasonment. Like 40 and 2 months is basically 3.5 years. And we was doing a little bit math on the 400 year 2019, right? 2019. And in 2019, right? If 2019 is 400 years, right? Then therefore 3.5 months, I mean 3.5 years is 42 months. 42 months, do the math, is about 3.5 years, right? And roughly 3.5 years was the time of the ministry of I Rabbi Yeshua HaMoshiach, Rabboni Yeshua. 3.5 years in the New Testament, right? So there's 3.5 formula, and then 3.5 is actually half of 7. So 3.5 and 3.5 together, if you add it up in real math, you have 7. And then the verse I just had read about the Messiah being cut off from Daniel, if you scroll back the video, the verse I just read from Daniel about about the Messiah will be cut off in the middle of the week. The middle of the week is 3.5. So you get it? 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. So me and the brother was reasoning about 400 years. So 2019, back in 1619, 400 years. And we just had a reasoning on this. And recently we was talking about the Ukraine thing and had a good old belly roll and a laugh, like, wow, we were just talking about it. The brother reminded me. International chaplain of the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, Brother Rasiadonis. Yes, I. Hail up. Yes, I. Just for the eye to be able to testify in due time as well. So 3.5 years, and he reminded me, he said, remember the 3.5 years we were just talking about? And I was like, Chan, this is what? 2022. And there's a lot of twos this year, right? 2022. All right, just the other day it was 2/22, 2022. Now we're in 2022. And Hebraically, Judaically, and scripturally, the number 22 has a great significance because it's the Alpha and Omega of the Hebrew alphabet, or the Aleph Tav of the Hebrew alphabet. So 2019, right, 400 years, 2020, right, 2021, and look at it. We're here in 2022, and the whole world is going, Russia, Russia, Russia. Oh my God, he's another Hitler. But what they don't recognize is that the British, right, from World War II, right, from back in World War II, there was agreement that was being made among the three, you could say the three, America with Roosevelt, England with Churchill, and Stalin with Russia. Agreement was made. And simply put, brothers and sisters, sisters and brothers, Britain, Churchill mainly, and Britain, right, because, okay, they made agreement and he wrote down on a piece of paper. There was a piece of paper that was written down, right, that Britain and America, but mainly Britain, would respect Russia's territorial sovereignty. It's like America. America does not want like Al-Qaeda to be in Mexico, right? America doesn't want Al-Qaeda or ISIS or the Islamists or whatnot, don't want them like to have a base of operations on the border like in Canada. And in likewise, like fashion, Russia, as any country, will seek to protect its territorial integrity and sovereignty. So back on Bitter Lake, when these three powers representing America, England, and Russia got together, their leaders, there was agreement that was made and was written on, like, you know, a piece of paper by Churchill. But then after the war and everything was over, Britain and her daughter, America, England, reneged on it. And because of the reneging on that, because really, if you look at World War II, it was Russia, right, that basically largely, not alone, but largely won the war. Nobody really remembers that because they had the Cold War. You remember the whole Cold War shite? That whole Cold War thing rose up, right? And the Cold War, in the eyes of people in America, and through the propaganda and the movies and Hollywood and everything like that, made Russia like this, you know, like they're red. See their color red. You see their flag red. They are Satan. You know, made them out back in those days to be like Satan. And everybody in the West went for it, right? I'm not saying that things in Russia were cool or good, but you have to recognize that an agreement was made. And this agreement that was made was not kept. And then after they were on friendly terms, once the war was won and Britain is back on top and America is on top of that, you know what I'm saying? They went back, they kind of ganged up against their partner, a significant partner that assisted them in winning the war. And then they make believe through the media that it was all Russia's fault. You know, like it was all the Soviet Union, Russia's fault. You know what I mean? And then later on, I'm gonna get this from this documentary. Later on, that letter, that note that Stalin and Churchill had sat down and wrote, like how things would be divided after the war, was lost for a moment. But then I don't know if after Churchill died or towards the later years, it was found again. And actually in the documentary, they actually show the exact letter, like a photo, a facsimile of the letter. And it showed that, okay, here's how, after we defeat Germany, right, here's how we're going to like divvy things up. And Russia, we understand your concerns and we're going to respect your border area. And that border area and those countries that are culturally, historically linked to you, we're not going to try to poach them. But that's exactly what they did. And this is why Berlin was split. But in the media, through the presidents and through all the propaganda in America, they've made everybody believe that it was all Russia's fault. But yet, if you watch some of these well-known documentaries like World at War, for example, the World at War, this was made by England. There's a British documentary made in England back in the 70s, and that's where I first came across it. And then when I rewatched Oliver Stone's Untold History of the U.S., of the United States, he said some things around the same basic point that brought that back to mind. I said, Chan. And then, a couple days later, Ones and Ones was telling me, Russia invaded the Ukraine. And when I first heard that, I said, well, it's like the same way, like if America, how many times has America sent its police or military even undercover into Mexico? Right now, if America sees a threat didn't America invade Grenada? Little old Grenada. Didn't America invade Grenada? And what happened with, Maurice Bishop? God bless his soul. That was a tragedy what they did to the Grenadans, you know, and how it was a fake war. It was a totally fake war and everything. But they invaded Grenada, right? And even when, what's his name? He was taking attention off of the Iran-Contra thing. I don't know if y'all even remember. Maybe you're not old enough or your memory not strong enough to remember the Iran-Contra thing. The Iran-Contra, where they were actually dealing with Iran, right? They were like kind of giving arms for money from Iran so they could use that money in its undercover war in South America, where so many indigenous peoples in South America were killed in this another fake covert war. You don't even know about anybody from South America, y'all know. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And so America, while they were against the Islamist fascists and against Iran, behind the scenes, they were selling them weapons, getting money, you know, this is like a black op, and using that black op currency through the CIA to fight their covert war against what? Against communism in the Western Hemisphere. Because after what happened with Cuba, and we all know about the Cuban crisis, right? The whole Cuba, you know, they wanted to kill him. They did the Bay of Pigs and all that kind of stuff. And so once they couldn't remove Cuba, they determined we cannot even any hint of anybody in the Western Hemisphere from Texas and Mexico all down through Panama Canal, all down into South America. Anybody that even whistles communism, we're coming after you. And we know that America has sent troops, overt and covert, into other parts of this Western Hemisphere, you know, into America, you know, I mean, into like the Americas, you know, like, or the Caribbean, like with the Grenada thing, because of what? Because of the threat of Russia or communism in the region and how that could affect America. Now, I know people want to say might is right, but here's what I want to warn ones. Not this time. That's why Revelation says what it says. Who can make war with the beast? There is one, the one will make war with the beast. The one will make war with the beast. But anyway, my brothers and sisters, and I'm talking about Putin, not just Putin, but this might not be like the last time. Anyway, brothers and sisters, you got to know history, man. This is a repeat of history. This is an actual repeat of history. And if Churchill and them had kept their agreement with Stalin, right? Yeah, leave Britain up there. If Churchill and them had gotten, Russia is the one in the center. If they had kept their agreement with Stalin, we would never never had not Germany, split between East and West, the Cold War, and all that Cold War. Cold War was still war. That's why Daniel said wars are determined to the very end, right? Don't worry about World War II. World War II is going on. You can't see? Can't you see? World War II World War II has gone on, and World War III is still going on. What we're in is a time of the end of the times of the Gentiles, the end of the times of the nation states, right? And these are the nation states. Count them. How many heads they said was on the beast? 7, but it says an 8, and the 8th is of the 7th, and will go into perdition. They're on the precipice. Humanity and this world order is on the precipice. And this Russia thing that's going on is a major sign of the time.